Hey friends, welcome back to another Monday Musing. My name's Timothy, and I'm a professional DM running over 300 games a year, and our Monday Musing segment is where we take a topic from the community and just sort of dive in unscripted and see what comes out. Today's topic is brought to us by Charlie, who is actually one of my players and also a supporter of the YouTube channel, so thanks so much, Charlie, for submitting this question. You are appreciated. His question is, how do you pull off long-term payoffs as a DM? He specifically mentioned in his question the walking, living treehouse that he and his group recently received several months after putting plans into action to enact that opportunity for their group, the Copper Keepers. Running up and down the Sword Coast in a semi-homebrew campaign called The Death of a Sararak. So, my thoughts, honestly, on how long-term payoffs work revolve around two things for the most part. The first is the concept of a squeaky wheel. Obviously, it's a pretty common idiom, but the squeaky wheel is the one that gets the grease, right? It's the one that you end up looking at and taking care of because it's the noisiest one, so you hear it and are reminded that there's something that needs to be taken care of. I'll come back to what that means. The second concept that comes into my mind is essentially one of callbacks, remembered callbacks. There's a principle involved in both of these that it has, to a certain degree, the understanding that you need to know your players and know what's actually important to them, which is not always what they might maybe think is important to them or always what they tell you is important to them, but it's often something you see in subtext. But the squeaky wheel concept, obviously, is just if players are talking about this thing that they're super excited about and they keep talking about it and keep talking about it, then you know that it's something that deserves a little bit of extra time, a little bit of an extra attention to make sure that it comes up in play and that they get a chance to interact with it in the way that they want to. While the remembered callbacks is actually more about being kind of sneaky regarding the squeaky wheel concept. Because the best time to spring a long-term payoff onto your players is shortly after they have forgotten that they used that they squeaked at you about the concept. If you respond to a squeak with the turnover and giving them the thing that they're looking for, it's satisfying because they get what they are asking for, but it doesn't have that same feel of like, oh man, yeah, this cool thing that we were so after, it's finally come to pass. It doesn't have that same zing to it if you give it when it's asked for. That being said, please don't just take this to mean that you should never give your players what they ask for. Sometimes they really are asking for something that they want and they deserve right now. But if they're putting an effort towards something that might take a little bit of time to come to fruition, letting them make small noises that are going to inform you that they desire it, to put it to the top of your list, and then finding ways to remind yourself to bring that back in and to just be excited for your players, because the things that you're excited about for your players are the things that you're going to remember that your players are excited about, and that gives you the opportunity to sneak in a little bit of a payoff here or there just after they've forgotten that they were pushing and prodding for it in recent times. A couple of examples. We have the treehouse example, which they went on a great big long quest to enjoy in the Cloakwood north of Candlekeep, and the payoff for that was the possibility of creating this living treehouse that they had a certain degree of ideas for, and they were really excited for a while, giving me loads and loads of extra information, but they knew that it was kind of a long-term thing, and so eventually they sort of let that lie fallow, and then every now and then they'd be like, oh man, I wonder how that's going. And then by the time I had finally finalized it and made a decision, what I did was wait until after their expectation had fallen down a little bit, kind of like a tension beat dropping to a low point, and then I snuck it into a place where they wouldn't expect to find the information and let it burst upon them in an unexpected manner. And because of that twist of not being prepared for it, not going searching for it, but it appearing literally on the doorstep of Candlekeep for them, that allowed them to get that extra boost of excitement of like, oh my gosh, he remembered and he did all this and this is so cool. And the work that had gone into producing that, both by them and then by me, became really worthwhile. Other examples from campaigns past for me was several times in the Waterdeep Dragon Heist, which I've run a number of times. Trollskull Alley has had different levels of interest from the varied player groups, and so they've put in varied amounts of upfront effort into turning it into the things that they wanted to turn it into, and then after making little efforts doing these little things, being told about their successes, they would fall off and it would fall away and they'd forget about it, and to the point where at later campaigns I'd be able to bring it up for them, or just at later points when they returned to the city they would see how things had progressed towards the goals that they were looking for Trollskull Manor or for their other businesses and the like. And it just, by moving the story along a little bit when they leave for when they return, it allows you to give them that little feeling of impact upon the game world. And then when people later go visiting Trollskull Manor and see the crazy Beholder Disco Ball that your other crew had imported in there, the excitement of having impacted on the game world in a concrete fashion that could be felt in other campaigns is a really awesome feeling. So giving some permanence to what they do makes a big difference in how it can be perceived. Another example was the Hunting Lodge in the Tyranny of Dragons. My group had a lot of interest in that when they first formed it, and they put in some different efforts and constantly came back to it, sending people over in that area, trying to find ways to staff it, to fund it, and it became a useful portion of the campaign as they went on, because they kept providing the squeaky wheel of being interested in it, and all I had to do was take the story that was there, think through the next logical step, and move the story forward whenever they were done being at the location, so that when they came back, my notes would provide that payoff for the group of time having gone past, and object permanence of having left it in one condition and coming back to find that it had progressed and grown from there. Was a key factor in keeping them engaged in it, and also having them feel like their choices had impacted in a good way the world situation. So if your players are really talking about something, then it means that they're really invested and interested in it. And if you can find a way to wait just long enough for them to forget that they've been harping about it, and then give them the little payoffs, that can make a big difference. But the easy way for tracking and keeping it going is to adjust it in your notes as they leave. Find out what the impact of the changes that they've made would be for when they come back. And then you can, touch the dials a little bit if maybe they come back sooner than you would have expected, or they've been gone for longer than you expected. But if you do the work when they leave, then when they unexpectedly at 17th level just teleport back there without any warning to you, you've already made the changes, and so you already know what the situation is there, so that they can feel like the world is alive and growing, and they know that their decisions carry weight, and that their desires and efforts to achieve their desires can have the consequences that they're looking for, or other unintended consequences as the world reacts to what they push with the pushback that naturally comes. I hope that answers your question, Charlie, on how to keep track of things. Typically just top of mind when they are squeaking the wheel, for waiting until you can subvert their expectations to make it feel really awesome when it comes, and adjusting your notes when they depart so that when you come back, you can give them the payoff. Hope that helps. The Monday Musing is constantly open. I need more suggestions. So if you have a question that you would like answered, whether it's a rules iteration or an idea on the higher level like design front, go ahead and shoot me a comment or a message, and I would love to answer your question here. Thanks very much for watching. Have a great day. Happy adventuring.